in creating a degree of independence for this university with its own board, with its own board authorized to do the kinds of things that a board is empowered to do typically, and to help achieve that, because I think it's essential to the future of the university. So that's going to be part of what I'm going to be advocating for and trying to create the conditions for. I think as well, I want, obviously to make sure that we're recruiting and retaining some of the best faculty that we possibly can. This university has more searches going for an institution of its size than basically any other public university with which I'm familiar today. And so recruiting and retaining the very best faculty is critical.
Okay. Going back to October when you first arrived, you were working part-time 2 days a week. What was your work schedule like then? What specifically was your job description then?
Well, basically what I was doing was taking the temperature of the campus, because we were getting ready for a capital campaign, and in order to plan that campaign, what kind of gifts for what purposes the various units of the university would be seeking. I met with all of the deans, talked with them at length about their aspirations for their colleges, their perception of the university, what their needs were, what directions they wanted to go. So I did a lot of that, as well as meeting with some of the administrative staff here, working closely with the provost on any assignment that she wanted me to meet. And just generally getting reacquainted with the campus. That was my first order of business, which I did in the last half of October and through the month of November, until the roof kind of fell in with the decision of the board to terminate the president. Mm-hmm. And
so as far as like what your calendar looked like, was it mostly just a series of tours across campus or meetings with
people,
deans?
Mostly meetings with people, yeah.
Okay. So
I met occasionally with a donor, and talked with people about development and so forth. Okay. And I met regularly with the president to talk about issues that were on his mind.
Mm-hmm. Did you or did Lervier foresee the decision by the OUS not to renew his contract?
I can't say whether he foresaw it. I certainly didn't.
You didn't?
No.
Okay. So it came out and it was a complete surprise for you and maybe other deans, maybe other...
I think it felt like a bolt of lightning. Mm-hmm. To me at least. Okay. Because I felt he was doing an outstanding job.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, I got a couple. I just kind of want to talk about a little bit of your background. What are some of your greatest achievements throughout your career as an administrator, throughout all the different schools you've worked at?
Well, I've been at 4 universities primarily as an administrator: at the University of Oregon as Dean of Arts and Sciences, the University of Illinois as Provost, the University of Texas at Austin as President, and University of California, Berkeley as Chancellor. I think that, it's hard to say. I think that at Illinois, I orchestrated a major reallocation of resources within the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign in order to be able to grow the university in areas that we felt important to its future, and shrink some areas that were less significant. So that was an important initiative there. Obviously, in any of these leadership positions, recruiting other people to lead components of the campus is important. So appointing a number of deans and then as a president or chancellor, appointing vice presidents and vice chancellors. I would say that at Texas, what I felt was needed in that campus was really, because it's a very large campus, over 50,000 students, I felt that a really stronger sense of community was essential. It's so hard in these very large campuses to have the campus have a feel of being one university.
And how do you feel about that here? What do you think?
I think this university has, its size is an advantage because it's not a mega university like Texas is. And so I think that that was very important to Texas. I think this campus has a stronger sense of community. It's in a smaller city. There are a lot of components of that. The successful sports program has contributed to, I think, a lot of enthusiasm on the part of students and the community. I focused heavily on undergraduate education at all of those places because I really felt that they were great research universities, and we needed to move the research capacity, which is powerful at all of these institutions, into the service of undergraduates more closely. So we created undergraduate research programs at Berkeley and really focused heavily on improving the opportunities that undergraduates had at those places.
Do you think more work along those lines needs to be done here at this university?
I haven't, I really haven't looked into that issue enough to be able to say the answer to that. I think it's very important that every university do it. This university has components that neither of those, there was a similar thing at Texas, I would say, to the Honors College. But I think having various components that are focusing on the undergraduate experience, whether it's the freshman experience that students have, whether it's an honors program, whether it's a senior capstone seminar or thesis, all of those things are really important. The fact is, to be successful in the United States today really requires a college education, and increasingly it requires graduate work. And so we have to be preparing students not only for the world of work, but also for the capacity to learn the rest of their lives. Being engaged in research programs that are the unique quality and feature of these universities is, I think, a very important aspect of them. It's how you learn, and it's how you learn to learn. And so,
do you think
very important.
Sorry to interrupt. Do you think that moving ahead, that a strong partnership with the OUS will help that, or do you think that it would be best to have less interaction with the board and allowing ourselves more opportunities to be creative with our?
Well, I think that the great virtue of independence is that you have more control over your own destiny and your own resources. And so that, I think, enables the university to flourish in ways that are less clear to me within a fairly confining system, especially a system that has the institutions have very diverse missions. The University of California was a system as well, but those universities all had, they didn't have identical programs, but they had identical missions as research universities. They were the PhD granting institutions in the state of California. They were the research institutions in the state of California. So they had very common missions. It's more difficult, and I have to say that was true in Texas as well at times. When institutions have diverse missions and diverse objectives, and but are necessarily in some kind of a lockstep system that doesn't, I think, reflect the virtues of that diversity.
Okay. So, moving ahead to the permanent replacement for the Riviera, what sort of characteristics do you want to see, and what sort of relation do you want to see with OUS from that president?
Well, I again hope that president comes to an institution that is going to have its own board. So I think under those circumstances, the relationship with OUS would be more tenuous.
Mm-hmm. So you're saying you want, by the time that the new president steps in, you think that there should be
whether that can be realized or not, I'm not certain. But I think that the road to that realization will have to be clear to whoever takes the job. They'll have to know that that's going to happen, because I think it will become a much more attractive job if that's the case. Mm-hmm. So I think that's an important component of the search. I would want somebody who is an accomplished academic in their own right, because I think leading a research university, you have to have walked the walk and talked the talk in order to be able to lead. And I would want somebody who really understands the role of a research university and what a public university means. This is a public university. Whether we have our own board or not, it's going to be a public university, and that's vital. We're here to serve the state of Oregon, and I think we can, by enhancing the quality of this place, we can serve the state better. The research universities are fundamental to the economic growth of a state. They're fundamental to the education of its citizenry, to the attraction of businesses to the state. A highly qualified workforce. I mean, you guys that live in Portland, many of you know that Portland, what's it called, Silicon Forest. Well, I came back to Portland from Silicon Valley, essentially. If you look at what the University of California, for example, has done for the state of California, two-thirds of the California has two-thirds of the biotechnology companies in the world, or the United States, I guess, probably in the United States. Two-thirds of those that are in California were created by faculty from the University of California and Stanford. That has added an enormous dimension. If you look at Silicon Valley, you know that was created by Berkeley and Stanford, mostly by Stanford, I have to say. More by Stanford than Berkeley, but still, Berkeley has fed an enormous component of that development. We live in a society where our research universities are the envy of the world. They're being emulated in China, in India, in Europe even, where you have established universities but haven't been built essentially quite as American universities are. And so every place is recognizing the role that these universities play in the development of society. Mm-hmm. And the stronger the universities are, the bigger the contribution they can make to their regions.
Mhm.
So that's somebody who understands that is, and how to do it is going to be very important to this state and to this university.
And in general, as this university grows and tries to reach that level of research, do you think that an independent board or independent governance, is that something that is an inevitable change, or do you think that there can be changes to
I think
the
it will
OUS
facilitate
system?
that. I think it will facilitate that, yes.
Okay. And do you think that that will happen at some point, or do you think that
Yes,
the OUS system can be reworked?
I think it will happen at some point.
Okay. Very good.
What type of relationship do you have with former President Lariviere? I know you guys worked together and you worked as special assistant, but I guess on a more personal level, what kind of relationship do you guys have?
We have a very close personal relationship and friendship. I'm very fond of him. I think very highly of him. I think he's been a very successful president. You got to bear in mind, though, I've known every president of the University of Oregon since Robert Clark, which is probably a name you don't even know was president. But I've known Clark, Boyd, Olam, Brand, Frohnmeyer, and LaRiviere, all quite well, and I was a dean under Olam.
So you were here.
Dave Frohnmeyer came to the university as a faculty member, I think a couple of years after I did. We knew each other 40 years ago. We've known each other ever since. I think very highly of Dave, and I think he was an enormously successful president. I know quite a few.
Who's your
presidents.
favorite?
I'm not going to say that.
No, okay. As far as possible replacements for Lariviere for the permanent position, do you have a short list of candidates at this point?
No,
Okay.
I don't have a short list at all. We've got to really organize a search committee, organize a search process. The chancellor will be doing that. Alan Ford from the board will chair that search committee. And I just simply want to find the very best person available in the country.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And how specifically will you be working with OUS to try to find a president that is conducive to Lariviere's goals? Like what?
Well, I mean, I think that certainly the lion's share of the people on the search committee, who are faculty and trustees and members of the board, you remember, have said that they didn't have any policy differences with President Lariviere. So I think there's a great deal of broad support for that agenda.
Okay.
We have time for one more question.
Okay. Do you mind if I
Yeah.
steal the last one? I wanted to talk a little bit about a recent story that popped up in the Register Guard and on the New York Times. It's in regard to contract bonuses for coaches, and on the heels of the Rose Bowl, news came out that Chip Kelly is receiving large bonuses for having made it there and having won. And it's been a source of controversy from many people that I've spoken with and students, many students. So is that something that students should be frustrated about, the fact that...
About winning the Rose Bowl?
No, about the amount of money that is going as bonuses to what's already considered a fairly large contract. Is that something that's...
Well, those bonuses are not added after the fact. Those bonuses were built into the contract, and so all that we are doing is fulfilling the terms of the contract.
Okay.
So they were not. Those aren't just gifts that were given for winning the Rose Bowl. There are bonuses that are built into the contract from the time that it is signed, and they're very common Yes, football coaches earn a great deal of money, but let us remember that the football program is the primary revenue sport that supports everything else. And so winning and having the going to places like the Rose Bowl adds substantially to the revenue base that supports all the other non-revenue sports. And so if we want to have, an athletic program that provides opportunities for a wide range of students, it is important to have some revenue sports like football that generate that kind of revenue. And the competition for coaches is pretty keen.
Okay, so the contracts and the bonuses built in, would you describe
Well,
that
I would prefer that they paid the president as much as they do the football coach. Let me put it that way. But that's just not in the cards anywhere. So.
All right.
Is there maybe time for just one quick one?
All right, Sam.
All right. Okay. My last question is, the Oregon State Board of Higher Education cites several reasons for firing President Larbier. What do you think that their deciding factor was? I mean, I know you said that many of them said it wasn't
You have to
policy.
ask them. I really don't know the answer to
Okay.
that. I wrote my opinions in an op-ed piece that you probably have read.
Oh yeah.
That's. I'm not going to talk anymore about that issue. I'm really looking forward, not backward.
Okay.
Did that op-ed, did that come up as maybe a conversation topic with OUS officials?
I would say that they had read it.
Okay.